Hello, and welcome to Writing Women, the show where I will be examining the women who exist in fiction and the people who created them. This week, it is finally happening. I have finished my trip through the Song of the Lioness books with Book 4, Lioness Rampant. Thank you all for your patience in my sparse upload schedule. I upload every other Friday to allow myself plenty of time to read the books and reflect on them while also working and going to school. Once I'm out of class for the semester, I may begin uploading once a week. Anyway, this book has been such a roller coaster. So much happens in it, and I got pretty emotional toward the end, even though I expected all of it to happen. In the thumbnail, I put up some of the best cover reissues for this book, and right about now, I will put on screen probably the prettiest but most inaccurate reissue. It's one of the foreign issues, I believe, and I am just so confused about her hair color and just everything. Tamora Pierce is pretty well known to have some wacky looking reissues, but this one I think takes the cake. Anywho, let's get into the recap and then the discussion. The final chapter of this quartet finds Alanna and her manservant Coram far from Tortall on a quest seeking a legendary stone that can provide untold powers in the hands of country rulers. Stopping in Berat, Alanna meets Liam Ironarm, the Dragon of Shang and the most powerful of the Shang fighters, who befriends her and agrees to accompany her on her quest for the Dominion Jewel. En route to the roof of the world where the jewel is hidden, Liam and Alanna begin a love affair, despite their clashing tempers and his fear of all things magical. The travelers pass through war-torn Serain, ripped apart by a vicious civil war between the native Khmeri tribes and the ruler, Warlord Jinwalima, whose armies persecute the Khmer. The war has been fueled by the death of the warlord's Khmeri wife, Khalasin, the most beautiful woman in the world, who killed herself as a rebellion against the persecution of her people. Caught in the midst of the battles, Alanna and her friends stumble upon Princess Thayet, the warlord's only child, who is in hiding from her father's enemies who wish to either kill her or marry her to claim the Seren throne. Thayet and her friend/protector, Buriram Torakam, I didn't look up how to say her name, so I really hope I got that right. I'm just going to call her Buri from now on. So, Buri is a gruff Khmer, and they join Alanna, Coram, and Liam on their quest for the jewel, knowing that it is best for Thayet to leave her country and never return. The group travels to the roof of the world where Chitral's pass is blocked off due to severe blizzards. Alanna knows Chitral, the mountain element who holds the jewel, will never make it easy for her to obtain the jewel, so she bespells her friends to keep them asleep, and she ventures into the blizzard up the mountain herself. She battles Chitral, who takes the form of a mountain ape, and though she is defeated, he gives her the jewel anyway. Alanna, wounded, frozen, and half dead, passes out. When she wakes up, she is back in the hotel with her friends. Liam is furious that she witched him, and the two break off their romance, but attempt to remain friends. Meanwhile, Alanna has been having strange dreams from home of her brother Tom, George, Jonathan, and Duke Roger's dead body. When the group encounters Raoul of Golden Lake, he confesses to Alanna that Tortall is in turmoil. Queen Leanne is dead, and the king committed suicide soon after. A grief-stricken Jonathan has been made king, but not been crowned. And worst of all, Alanna's arrogant brother Tom, in an effort to prove to the haughty Lady Delia of Eldorn that he is the most powerful sorcerer in the realm, has raised Duke Roger from the dead. Alanna's friends accompany her back to Tortall, where she finds the people whispering of famine, black magic, and a cursed reign for King Jonathan. She takes her place at Jonathan's side, giving him the Dominion Jewel, and Jonathan names her as his king's champion, the first female champion in history. Meanwhile, Alanna finds amusement when he falls in love with Thayet and begins to court her. John and Alanna agree that they were not right together, but when she looks to George to renew his romance, he treats her as nothing more than a friend. Her brother Tom is rapidly growing ill, poisoned by his own gift, and Alanna is helpless to stop it. Meanwhile, Alanna and Roger have a vicious encounter where they renew their old hatred, and Alanna suspects that Lady Delia and others, including her old rival Alex of Tiragan, are plotting to overthrow Jonathan and put Roger in his place. On the eve of the coronation, Alanna meets the Great Mother Goddess, who warns her that the coronation will be a crossroad in time. Sure enough, during the ceremony, insurgents wearing Tiragen and Eldorn colors storm the palace, and Alanna and her friends fight to protect Jonathan. Tom dies, drained of life by Roger's spell. Princess Josiane of the Copper Isles kills Faithful, then tries to kill Alanna, and in turn, Alanna kills her. In a rage, Alanna also kills Alex when he tries to detain her from reaching Roger, and she confronts her archenemy, who uses her sword, part lightning, part the Bazir shaman's sword, to bring her to him. The spell backfires when she stops resisting and lets go, killing Roger with his own sword and destroying his evil forever. When the fighting dies down, Alanna sees that Liam is also dead, killed while protecting Jonathan. After the insurgents are captured, Alanna returns to the Bazir to rest and clear her head, also to grieve for her brother, Liam and Faithful. Theet and Buri visit her there, where Alanna gives her blessing on Theet's upcoming marriage to Jonathan. The Shang Wildcat, who was once Liam's teacher, visits briefly to give Alanna a letter Liam had written before he died. In it, he says he knew that his time was near, and he tells Alanna to live a happy life with a man who loves all of her, and she realizes by the end that George has always been the one for her. Later, George visits her among the tribe, bearing the news of Theet and Jonathan's engagement, and Alanna confesses that she still loves George and wants to be his wife. The series ends with George and Alanna cementing their own engagement with a kiss and announcing it to the Bazir. For probably the last quarter of the book, I had goosebumps all up my arms. I will never get over Faithful's death, or the death of Tom, no matter how much I saw that one coming, even when I first read the story. One thing I thought was really powerful was the callback to Alanna's experience in an earlier book. When she's in the old ruins with Miles and is being attacked by the presence there, she only wins her freedom when she stops fighting. This happens twice in the culmination of her story, and I think it is really a testament to her growth as a character. The first is during her fight with Chitral. During their fight, she cries out that she doesn't want to kill him, and she stops fighting. She's realized that if she must fight and kill for the Dominion Jewel, then it may not be worth it. She expresses her thought that when it comes down to it, she would be stealing the jewel from Chitral. So he tells Alanna that he has amused him and gives her the jewel anyway. I don't think he would have if she had been a bloodthirsty warrior who was wanting to kill anything or anyone to get it. Chitral tells her that he is older than her gods, some type of elemental spirit, and that he's the one who made the jewel in the first place. It's a neat detail for the reader who may be wondering where this all-powerful gem came from. The second time in this book when Alanna stops struggling is perhaps the most important in the series. During her fight with Roger in the catacombs, when he reveals how he put some of his power into the things he crafted, including the hilt of her sword that she now carries, after fusing it with the broken lightning in the previous book, he calls to the hilt and the sword tries to break free of her grasp to go to him, but she struggles to hold it. Lightning is her weapon. It chose her that long ago day in the ruins when she was a child. The first time she ever learned that sometimes fighting may not be the best way out of a situation. She is a warrior, and what is she without her sword? While fighting to hold the sword, she realizes that this is a no-win situation, and the easier way is to just stop fighting it and let it go. So she releases it, and it impales Roger like a slingshot of death. Alanna is a warrior. She has been hot-tempered and ready to fight for her whole life. Now she understands that fighting isn't the only way to solve her problems. We also find out that lightning is stuck there now, unable to be removed, and Alanna likes it that way. She can find a new sword. I think this is important, but kind of for a weird reason. I used to be a bit of a hoarder. I had so many things that were special, unique, or even just important to me for small reasons, and my apartment was a cluttered mess all the time. It was only when I stopped struggling to hold on to everything that I was better able to appreciate new things in my life and feel more comfortable in my own home. The female friendships in this book are just perfect. We see Alanna not just exploring, but fully loving her feminine side. She even has to defend it against Liam at one point. When they're waylaid by the blizzard, she decides to put on a dress she had in her pack, and Liam insults her for wanting to look pretty. Liam's actions aren't even borderline, they are straight up manipulative. He likes when Alanna acts the way he wants her to, and deliberately says cutting things to her when she doesn't fit into the box he is trying to make for her. So in her romances, we have John, who humored her as a knight, but wanted her to settle down and be queen, wear dresses, and kind of give it all up. Then we have Liam, who fully appreciates her as a warrior, but thinks she's outright stupid for wanting to indulge any desire that doesn't revolve around usefulness in battle, unless you count his absolute disdain for her magic, which he frequently outright insults her for using, trying to guilt her into cutting off a part of herself that he doesn't like. He refers to it as cheating and not real work. And all of this makes her think of George, who, again, we are reminded, has always not just accepted her, but encouraged her. Throughout the book, we get glimpses of George's POV, where we find out that though he misses Alanna greatly, he would never consider trying to force her to do anything she didn't want to do. He knows about her and Liam, and it makes him sad, but he isn't bitter. He doesn't treat her badly when she returns for having been with somebody else. For that matter, he shows a remarkable lack of jealousy over any of her relationships. Though he loves her, he remains her friend and a friend to her lovers because he would rather be in her life as a friend than not at all. Her ending up with George is the absolute best option of her three romantic partners. I know I got a little sidetracked there, but back to the female friendships. Sorry. I appreciated so much the friendship between Alanna and Thayet. Alanna immediately knows that Thayet and John would be perfect together and cannot wait to introduce them to each other. She knows that Thayet will challenge John and not let him walk all over her. Though she still loves John, it is as a close friend and nothing more. There is no bitterness in her heart that John falls in love with Thayet, even though Alanna is mildly jealous of Thayet's effortless beauty. For some reason, I can't say the word jealous today. I've tried to record that line a dozen times, but every time I do, I keep saying jealous weird. So I'm just going to leave that in there. There have been a couple of times that's happened today, and I'm finally leaving those lines in. Usually I'm not a fan of the not like other girls girl being jealous of the pretty girl situation. I'm not really sure what about this relationship makes it less of a problem for me. I think it's something to do with how Alanna's jealousy isn't a constant nagging feeling, and it never makes her feel uncharitable toward Thayet. It's a random, almost wistful thought about how absolutely beautiful Thayet is, and how Alanna sometimes just wishes she could be considered more than cute in comparison. But it's always thought with warmth, never with negativity toward her friend. They are all so close that John is completely open with Thayet about his prior relationship with Alanna, not wanting to hide anything from her. Points to him for that. And Thayet, knowing this and still loving John, makes sure that Alanna is okay with it before they move forward. She is so concerned about hurting Alanna and possibly stealing her man that she is willing to end things with John, who probably knew that would be a possibility and told Thayet everything anyway, to be honest. Then after they announce their engagement, George comes to Alanna immediately. Now, early on before the coronation, John had pardoned George and also gave him a title with some land. His reasons were because he never wanted to have to sign a writ for one of his closest friends' executions. He also wanted George to be one of his closest advisors in court, and he would need to be a little more respectable to do that. George now talks with Alanna to make sure he isn't putting her in a weird position if she still loves somebody else when he asks her to marry him. I swear these books should be textbooks for healthy progressions of friendships and relationships. You know, after that bit with the forced kisses and all that stuff in the beginning, but again, I won't keep banging on about that. I covered it very thoroughly in my video about In the Hand of the Goddess, so if you want to hear about that, just go listen to that video. Alanna's growth as a character is the shining star of this book. I cannot repeat that enough. At one point, Thayet calls her brave for doing what she did, and Alanna responds that she could have also been brave by staying where she was and going to the convent and proving that women could be traditional, but still more than just mere ornaments that way. That is worlds different from the little girl who disdainfully thought of girly things as not worth her time. Her acceptance and greater use of her magic show her understanding that it is not inherently evil, and that it is merely a tool that can be used for great good. Her open acceptance of affection and open giving of affection to other people show her ability to overcome the trauma of her childhood, and it is juxtaposed with Tom, who never opened himself up to others, and it ultimately destroyed him. Alanna has changed, Tortall has changed, and the world is changing. The Bazir are living in the capital now, mingling with the Tortallans as they never have before. Immortals like the cat are roaming the land, interacting with mortals and guiding them. The Dominion Jewel is in the hands of a king who understands what it means to join with the hearts and minds of every living thing, and he wants to use that ability to bring his people together. All that being said, there are a few things that didn't really work for me. Chief among them being Princess Josiane from the Copper Isles. She existed in the story initially as a way to make Alanna jealous, which is a poor reason to introduce a woman into a story, and her character does not evolve much past that. Her motivation for wanting to murder John is some weird fatal attraction, if I can't have you, nobody can thing. And she is jealous of Alanna of all people, when at this point John is spending all his time with Thayet. I'm just so tired of that as a motivation for women, when the more common thing in real life is men being the ones who murder their partners for leaving. Now, as with so much else, I can't be too mad at it because these books were published when many of these tropes were being established. I just feel like it deserves a mention. Delia got more development in this book than she did in any other, despite being present for most of them. And as a result, her character also rings a little hollow. She is evil for the sake of being evil, kinda. We find out that she was Roger's mistress in the first life, and can infer that this is why she tried so hard to goad Tom into reviving him. That gets into the same problem I spoke about in my last video about the whole bring Roger back from the dead thing, though. It happened completely off screen in book 3, a book that could have used a strong B-plot to pick up the dragging sections. It came from out of nowhere as an, oh, by the way, and that's not a great way to set up the grand final confrontation with the reborn supervillain. Roger's plot was also sort of unclear to me in this book. His plan originally was to take the crown, but now it just seems to be destroying Tortall. And without more insight to his thoughts, there isn't much reason given for this change. I guess we're just supposed to chalk it up to the evil lich dude being back from the dead plotting type stuff. There's also the obvious bit about monarchs being chosen by the gods and all that. Divine right of kings is something that I will accept in fiction, where I will not accept it in real life. There is a conversation to be had about representing nobles as born inherently better in some way than commoners, and having a title makes you respectable, but it's honestly more than I really feel myself capable of digging into at this time. In my customary digging through of user reviews, I found myself just kind of laughing at the bad ones for this book. Obviously, there were a lot of valid complaints about not finding the story interesting. I mean, YA fantasy isn't something every adult who is writing a Goodreads review is really going to be able to get into, though you would think that people would stop trying to read these types of books if they have such a hard time finding them interesting. Aside from that, though, the complaints were a little ridiculous. One person was angry that Alanna ended up with someone she didn't remember being in the books after admitting she hadn't read them in 14 years. Then says it came out of nowhere. I'm sure if you've at least listened to me talk here, you know that's not even remotely true. Other complaints were on the weird side of attempted feminism, where they complained about how Alanna can't possibly be a strong woman if she cares about her appearance or is insecure at all around other women. If you think that, I have no problem telling you that you are outright wrong. Strength comes in many forms. A woman is no less powerful because she likes to look pretty, or because she falls in love, or because she has human emotions and reactions like fear and insecurity. Those qualities are what make her strong and unique and an actual person instead of a two-dimensional character. If we're talking about representation, it's better for young girls to see someone who is actually like them, imperfect and human, dealing with human problems. So, some disorganized final thoughts that didn't really fit in anywhere else. I've seen some people complain about the romance between Eleni Cooper and Miles, but to be honest, I love it. They're great. They deserve each other. They're both awesome. I want to hug them. They are so sweet. I want them to be my parents. I want a black cat named Faithful, but I had already decided to name my next cat May after the character from Night in the Woods, so now I'm just kind of on the fence, and I don't know what to do there. I want to find somebody to make me a replica of the Dominion Jewel. Are we really supposed to believe that the king just did not care about Roger trying to murder his wife and fully pardoned him despite when she died as a direct result of Roger's actions, and the king was so heartbroken that he killed himself? Like, he killed himself because he was so just devastated at the death of his wife. And as she is wasting away as a direct result of Roger's actions, Roger comes back to life, and the king is just like, let's let bygones be bygones. It's whatever. I'll just restore your title and lands. I'll pardon you. Just stay away from me. Your magic is gone, right? Just hang around. I really don't buy that at all. I'm glad Rowling got killed while acting like a coward. Classic Rowling. Glad George got to be the one who killed him too. The more I think about it, the less I like Liam. I really, really don't like him. I'm glad Alanna got to pay back Alex for trying to kill her all those times when they were still young. So that does it for the Song of the Lioness. I have enjoyed this so much that I cannot wait to get to the next series. My next video will be a standalone, and then after that I will begin my regular schedule with the Immortals Quartet. The Immortals were the first Tortall books I read because my middle school library did not have Alanna's books, so unfortunately, I knew going into Alanna's books who survived, what some of Alanna's great deeds were, and even who she married, because she is a character in Dane's books. I hope everyone has a lovely time with me, and I hope you join me in the future. If you like this video, please remember to actually like this video. It really helps me out. Don't forget to subscribe and share with any friends who may like to join our little book club. As always, if you have any thoughts to add, please share them in the comments below. And if you would like to help support me on Patreon, please go to patreon.com/writingwomen. And now I would like to give a special thank you to my first 4 patrons. They are Meriadoc Brandybuck, Ms. Psycho, The Doctor, aka Amy Chu, and last but not least, Bruce. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.